Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Match But Horse Racing podcast. This is the Handicaps special. We know the weights. We knew that last week. We've got confirmations for day one of the Cheltenham Festival as well. And we're going to get stuck into the Handicaps with Micheál, Deasy, Steve Jones and Dan Overall because we are, what are we, 6 days away. Honestly, cannot wait. Lots to look forward to over the next just under an hour or so. Reminder that insights.matchbook.com is the place to go for a recap of all of our best bets. Up there, you can find the article on the Cheltenham preview as well, where we had a stellar team amassed for that. And that also has links to listen and watch to all of that, as well as the selections written down for you. If you do like our content on YouTube, give the video a like. That's the thumbs up you need to click on, and you can subscribe for free. And if you're listening on the podcast, a review really helps us. Preferably a 5-star one as well would really help us, but whatever you want to do, but a review will help. And you can follow on your preferred podcast app, be it Apple or Spotify. All of these things are the best no-cost way of supporting this podcast. So please do so if you like our content. We're going to get into the handicaps very shortly. Just thought we'd go around and sort of see as we're only 6 days out, how people approach punting the week. DC, first of all, welcome along. How do you have you got your ducks in a row already, or will you be punting on the day most days as well?
Oh, I suppose years ago I'd have had a lot done empty post and I'd have been back and stuff in the weeks coming up to it, but I've kind of stopped that now the last 3 years because in a few years I turned up down plenty of money before a horse had even jumped the first hurdle. So the last couple of years I have held off. I've placed a few bets now the last 2 weeks, just small bets at big prices, and I've done 2 multiples. But most of my betting now will be done on the day. I tend to start the betting probably around between 10:30 and 11 in the morning when the books start upping their limits. Then I will I do multiples every day. I'll do 1 or 2 of them. One of big price ones, and then probably a few shorties. I don't do like 5 or 6 folds. I do doubles and trebles, maybe the odd patent. And then generally I will wait until the last 15 minutes before the race starts, try to be as sensible as possible, take into account the moves, and I do the majority of my betting on the exchange for Cheltenham. I like to use the win markets, and I like to use the place markets as well. I just find they're better value than having 5 or 6 different each way punts in a race.
Mark says the antipose game is gone anyway. It is for me. I used to have a good few bets in sort of October, November, and have been in some quite good positions on Mullins horses in the past, but the value seems to have gone there. And I don't know, that just seems, knowing where they're going to run, seems to have got harder. Although that seems has changed, it feels a little bit this year. Although it might change again if Final Demand goes up in trip. But anyway, but it feels like we know where they're more likely to go coming into this year. Personally, I only bet in trebles and upwards anyway. Much of that is to do with ill discipline when I was punting singles, because I'd be sat there in the racing TV studio thinking, oh, I might have a bit on that. But if I'll have all my bets done before race one, and I won't really change throughout racing. I won't place any more. And I'll also have one before the week, particularly now Brighter Days Ahead is confirmed for the Champion Hurdle. Probably going to do Kopek de Board, John Bon, Constitution Hill. Good to remember his name. And probably Galopanda Champ in there as well. Those are the 4 I think there's actually juice still in their prices personally. So that'll be a 4-timer I do before the week starts. Steve Jones, how do you approach the week?
Yeah, I like to do multiples because I think I only bet horses at big prices generally, and if you're going to have a good day, I think you want to have a fantastic day at the Cheltenham Festival and try and win a huge amount of money, but it's never happened really, so it's a waste of time really, isn't it? But yeah, I've had one anti-post bet, which is Golden Ace in the Champion Hurdle, and she looks like she's going to go to the Mayor's Hurdle, which she doesn't really stay, so I think that's a bit pointless exercise. So that would be my thing. So I wait to the day of the race, or the 48-hour decks has been fantastic in the last, it's probably last 10 years, is it? I don't know. But it gives you a lot more time to really get into the handicaps and things like that once the final decks come along. But George is very different. He's already got his bets on. He's looking forward to the Cheltenham Festival. He can't wait. Look, you can see it in his eyes. So everyone's different.
There we are. That's if anyone's listening and not watching, Steve held up a cat and it made him look like Blofeld a little bit, although Steve's got more hair. But I would say Steve's cat, George, looked more evil, if anything. I thought he looked particularly evil there, and particularly sort of surly, downbeat, and yes, angry. And
he lives with me.
Where does he get that from? Also, good to hear about another really solid champion hurdle anti-post bet with Golden Ace, because you did back Edwardstone a few years ago as well, Steve, for the champion hurdle anti-post. So continuing that theme, Dan, overall, how many bets have you had so far?
I would say I've had about 20, maybe. I try and build up a little bit of a book, so to speak, not as much as some, and it has become a lot tougher. I generally won't start until mid-December at the absolute earliest, but generally after Christmas is when I would start to really build it up. And some positions look good, some look completely useless. So it's a bit of a mixture. And so those I'm in good positions on, I may not really need to touch the race again. Others I'll revisit as we get closer to the off. So it's a bit of a mixture. And then probably on the Monday evening, once I'm there at Cheltenham a bit settled in, probably establish the multiples. Some will be one of the short price ones to get some of them on side in various ways. And then others will be some lucky 15s and co's in handicaps just to get a bit of a spread to make sure, say, if there is a good day, it'll be a very good day. So a bit of a mixture of both.
Simon says, "Is that cat stuffed?" No, it was alive. Dale said, "My German Shepherd just barked at the TV." I'm glad that's the effect we're having on you. Okay, the Ultima first of all. Then Dan and I agree. Sorry, Dan, I did put it first.
You did.
Though I stole your Gemarond and put it up on another podcast. So apologies. But yeah, Broadway Boy 11.0. I thought I can't. It's just. They were talking about this horse as a Gold Cup horse once. Obviously, ran a great race in the Coral Gold Cup. He had an issue last time at Cheltenham, but otherwise he's been rock solid there. And the first start of the season was a prep run. Apparently, he's in good form. Like, we know this. We know off this mark, if he's 100%, he'll be there or thereabouts. And I like his run style for the race as well. Yeah, I'm pretty sweet on him.
Yeah, I don't think it's a great Ultima, and it's kind of why I ended up coming back towards him. And he has had his issues, as you say, since having a really prolific start to his novice chase campaign. But the more I look at the race, the more I just want to have him on side. I think he's still got a race in him off this kind of mark. Obviously, ran really well in the Old Hennessy. That race has often produced Ultima winners. Excuses for last time out. They've talked about it as a Gold Cup horse. I think being realistically, he isn't. I think he's got probably one more race off him of this kind of mark, and then he's probably hit his ceiling. As you say, he'll go forward. Ground versatile, goes well at the track, obviously won here in December, form of which has been boosted no end. If he can get back to that sort of form, then he'll be there or thereabouts. Obviously, his prominent run style should suit as well. I thought I'd got away from Broadway Boy, but just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in with a lot of Willie Twiston Davis outrageous propaganda over the last couple of weeks. So we're going all in yet again.
Yep, with Broadway Boy, as is Dan. Steve Jones, who do you like?
Katate Dorry, who absolutely bolted up the other day at Kempton in a race that I think's got a really good record of throwing up decent chasers, and it's had Grand National winners in the past and things like that. And he absolutely bolted up in the manner of a very well handicapped horse. But even though he shot up the weights, he had a low weight in that race, and he's going to have another low weight in this one. Sam Thomas, who's only, I think, had 16 winners this season, but it pushes him right into because he's won so many decent races. He's way up there on prize money, probably in a percentage terms of winners. He's higher than anyone. And Sam Thomas, I think, is going to be a top trainer in not so long if he gets the capacity. And I just think it's obvious novices do really well in this race. The ground was very similar at Kempton than it's going to be at Cheltenham, and I think he's going to take all the beating in what's always a competitive race. But yeah, Katate Dorry for me.
And Micheál Deasy, who do you like? Incidentally, Katate Dorry ran about 11.0. Who do you like, Dees?
I've two for this. First one is the short go, Henry de Bromhead's horse. So this horse finished second over the course and distance. Finished second at the October meeting behind Senior Chief, his stablemate. That race has thrown up horses that have won the Ultima and have placed in the Ultima over the past few years. He's in here now, at a featherweight, but he's been put away for the whole winter because he's very ground dependent. Needs good ground, good yielding ground. I'd say we're going to start off an absolutely perfect ground for the start of the festival. I know Irish horses have a terrible record in this, but didn't get entered for the Kim Muir. Like he's in there now at 132 would be in the bottom of the Kim Muir as well. I just think that he's a fairly interesting profile for it. And again, he's 21.0. There hasn't been much support from yet, but just great course for him to start the year and had probably been held back for this. And the other one, now again, the ground is probably going to go against this horse, but this is a price thing. Trelawn is 26.0. Now, Trelawn went off favourite for this last year ahead of Chianti Classico, who was, how good was he? He absolutely walked in. And Trelawn started the season by beating Iroko in one of the best races of the year. I thought it was an absolutely brilliant race. They were at it from a long way out. Hasn't kind of backed it up the last two times. That might have been a hard race, but he's been given a little break now. He's top class horse. Could end up being top weight in this, but I just think that at 26.0, he's 5 times the price he was this time last year. And if the ground isn't, they're not going to let the ground be fast. It's going to be good soft, probably on the softer side. If there's no rain coming at all, they'll water well. That should be fine for him. I think he's a really classy horse. So I just think at the price he's too big at 26.0. So I let the two of them on the go. And see, someone is saying Highland in the comments there. He was my one from a long way out. He's probably the anti-post bet I had that's gone, and he would have won this doing handstands. So good shout there, Alex.
Okay, well there you go. That's Alex saying Highland is a good yardstick, Steve. All right, moving on to the Fred Winter. We've got 5 different horses going up in here. Dan, first of all, with you, big price.
Yeah, it's one of those where the top of the market doesn't necessarily inspire me much. I put up Hot Fuzz on the preview last week when he was around 34.0, but his price has just disintegrated. He's about 15.0 now. So at a bigger price again, I thought Solar Drive was one of the more interesting ones. Was progressing on the flat, albeit from a very low level, and has taken well to hurdles. He won at Ballinrobe despite not jumping well in the early stages. Definitely improved in that regard as the race went on. When Action Plan was back in third, Action Plan then reversed the form of him at Punchestown, just under 2 lengths between them. So he's in this race as well. He was getting £6. Solar Drive will be £3 better off with him here. And Slurricane was back in third, who's a horse almost ties a lot of these types together. So the fact that he was ahead of him, I think, bodes well. And Slurricane will be much worse off at the weights with Solar Drive if they were all to line up here. Had a mid-season break, then ran in the Scottish Triumph. Went from the front, jumped well, got racing quite early on there. I think he tried to make it a real test. And after a break of 109 days, I think was entitled to just tire late on, but only just got caught by St Pancras, who's now rated 130. So he comes here off a mark 124. If the ground dries out, that's going to be his favour. Seems really uncomplicated, jumps well from the front. I imagine that's how they'll ride him. So he's 51.0. I imagine he'll probably stay a relatively big price because his connections aren't exactly fashionable. But often you get a decent price one pop up at least, as Deasy was saying earlier off air, you get one pop up at least at a price at least a place at a big price. And given his run style, I think he'll give a decent run for your money.
All right, that's a big price. Even bigger price, DC shout. You got 2, one at the top of the market, one at the bottom, DC.
Yeah, I'll do the one at the bottom, the big price one. So the one I've gone for is Gordon Elliott's horse called Chartle. He is 101.0. The reason I gone for this was, look, I was actually watching my other horse, Beyond Your Dreams. I was watching her race at the start of the season there, and this horse finished 4th that day. So I went back through his form. He said 4 runs. First 2 runs, they kind of tried to go from the front with it. It ran against behind St. Lucie on New Year's Day, who ended up, I think, getting quotes for the Triumph. Finished 36 lengths, beaten 9th, but wasn't that bad a run. It's just they tried to go from the front, and it just didn't make it home, and it wasn't ridden out. The next time then at Punchestown again, it finished 5th, beaten by a horse called Castley. But again, I thought that was a much better run. Saw out the race well, kept going all the way to the line, and the last run then 2 weeks ago was just a nice little spin around Fairy House. Was never put into the race. I'd always look for one at a massive price, and just like Eagles Rain there last year finished second at 80 to 1. This Gordon is again, look, he brilliant record in the race. He landed it with Jazzy Mahi there a few years ago at a big price. He's had other big price ones placed in it, like Wendrock as well. But I think that Chartle is either going to go off maybe probably a shorter price and run well, or could end up quadruple the price and going over. So I have a little small bet in that.
And he also sorry, he'd need a few to not be declared to get in.
Yeah.
What would he need? 11 not to. He'd be on the cusp. I think 120 got in last year, and he's 116, but it's not impossible.
Not impossible, no. Featherweight, and again, it's triple figure price. You know, it's just one that caught my eye. Main bet would be Beyond Your Dreams, Joseph's horse. For JP, reasonable enough flat horse, landed a big gamble at the Listowel Festival there in over 1.5 miles. Was sent over hurdles then in November, had 3 quick ones, finished a half length second behind Total Luck at Navan in November, and then he beat Slurricane in Fairy House on the 14th of December, but again, it went off odds on, but it was just the way it finished out the race. Jumped badly, but just absolutely flew home, was different class to them. And again, look, he's in there kind of the middle of the way. He's going to be carrying 10-9. That's a nice weight. Joseph was very good in this race as well. There's been money for it. And I think, again, look, the market got this spot on last year. So I'd be hoping that this is the one for it.
The Cheltenham Exchange says, Mercia interests me for the Fred Winton. That's a Mullins horse. David says, Beyond Your Dreams must have a huge chance in this. Deasy obviously agrees, and Joseph O'Brien has won it with 2 horses who were anti-post favourites for the race, and this horse is short. Otherwise, it has gone to a big price in past years. Excuse me. Duck Goose says, Torrent for the Fred Winter a good each way price, and Dale says, I've no idea. Go to the loo while no queues. Fair enough. Steve, who do you like?
Yeah, another of Joseph O'Brien's and JP McManus called Put Your Hands Together, who was fairly progressive on the flat. I like the fact that he's always been owned by JP McManus and always been trained by Joseph O'Brien, so they can plan themselves from a long way out. And this horse won on the flat last summer at the Curragh in a handicap. Before switching to hurdles, won at Cork on soft ground, and he seems to be very closely matched with a horse called Turn and Finish, who's also trained by Joseph O'Brien. And I kind of think that they can almost control the handicap mark when you're doing something like that, because you've got 2 horses in the same stable. You can kind of try and control the handicap mark. And then last time at Fairyhouse in a novice hurdle, held up right at the rear and plugged on heavy ground. Well, this is a horse by Caravaggio, who was a very fast sprinter and from a very good flat pedigree, related to horses that placed in group races, Group 2s, even Group 1. So I think Put Your Hands Together might easily have got off a good mark here. And it's like Dee says, this is a race that Joseph O'Brien knows how to win.
I'm chancing Wendrock, who's just been on my radar for a little bit. A friend of mine told me who's pretty good with these types of horses. So keep an eye on the horse, what he does this year. Julie backed him first start and it didn't work out, but that was behind Total Look. Subsequent to that, beat Galileo Dame. Obviously, he's going to pay the price at the weights. He's second in here, 136. And then last time, I was really interested to see how he run. I mean, it was disappointing on the face of it, but there again, I would imagine they already considered the horse a Fred Winter horse, not a Triumph horse. And at 21.0, given the Galileo Dame form, I thought that was a very fair price, to be honest. It just feels like he's been a bit forgotten because it doesn't look like they've been clever. It doesn't have that appearance as a horse. He sort of reminds me a bit of Jazzy Matty, who took a race and then disappointed subsequently and then came and won this. All right, that's the Fred Winter done. National Hunt Chase, just you, Steve. Take it away.
I'll turn myself on first. That's the first thing to do. But no, I'm interested in Midnight Off. Well, yeah, very good. I'm interested in Midnight Off Fred. I mean, it's like a lot of horses, they got multiple options, and this is the handicap for the first time, so maybe things are changing. But back in the day, you wanted a horse with loads of experience, and Midnight Off Fred has not only got experience, but experience of Cheltenham as well, and finished runner-up a couple of times at Cheltenham, not last season, but the season before. We only saw, early last season, and then had a break, and has come back this season. It's only had 2 starts. Won the first of them over 2.5 miles at Garin Park. Well, the fact that he was quick enough to win from the front at over 2.5 at Garin, going right-handed, which doesn't really suit him, I think was the mark of an improved horse, and he backed that up by finishing second in one of the most competitive handicaps of the season in Ireland. It's Leopardstown over Christmas when he was runner-up from the front. And also, like the run style, Cheltenham's generally a front runner's track. And if he can get into a rhythm out in front on ground that he's got a really good record on, he likes decent ground. I think Midnight Eye Fred is going to be a very interesting contender.
Just one there for Steve with Midnight Eye Fred. That's over 3 mile 6 in the 5:20 at Cheltenham. I'll just give you have you got a price there, Steve? Let's have a look. Just because obviously everyone else has put it in the doc as requested, but you haven't put any 17.0. You haven't, but you obviously couldn't be asked, and that's fine. But we'll update it. That's fine. No problem.
Yeah, you're right. I couldn't be asked.
Moving on to the 240 on Wednesday, the Coral Cup. Dan, I'll let you do Comfort Zone first because it's your best handicap bet.
Yeah, it's one I think has the potential to shorten quite significantly, especially if the ground continues to dry. Obviously, I think a load of those stores ahead of the market may be unlikely to run. Obviously, this is assuming Cupbeck de May goes to the Martin Pipe, which the market would suggest he will do. And BeGambleAware is probably the only other runner other than Impostoir that I can see at the top of the betting currently who looks like they're going to run here. So I think Comfort Zone could shorten quite a lot. He was a Grade 2 juvenile hurdle winner on the new course a couple of seasons ago. Had a bit of an issue thereafter, but returned towards the spring of last season, ran in some pretty deep handicaps and a couple of intermediate trips, which I think he's always kind of been looking for. He was a narrow third at Galway in a race won by the Wall Park, because obviously now one of the each-way fancies for the Stairs Hurdle. Beacon Edge was back in 4th. He won the West Yorkshire Hurdle not long after, the 5th and 6th one shortly after as well. He then went on to win a big handicap on the flat, and we last saw him at Leopardstown over 2.5 miles at Christmas time. Waited with that day where the winner was Al Caspar, who made all. He checked after 2 outs, had to switch wide. Then he had to switch to the inside, come into the last. Just couldn't quite reel in the make-all winner. But that was a really encouraging run. It left the impression that he definitely has one of these big handicaps in him. And I like the fact that he's still relatively unexposed at this distance, but he's had sufficient experience in big fields and in general that you generally need for the Coral Cup. It's never been a race really for really unexposed horses thrown in the deep end. So I think he's almost been waiting for his turn. I think this will be a good opportunity for him. So it's seeming like we're going to be relying on Joseph having a really good week in general. I think I definitely will be. But this one looks like he's been laid out for a big handicap, and I'm hoping this will be the one.
All right. Dale says perfect choice for this race. We're now getting cat puns coming in because Steve held up his cat earlier on, whose name I've forgotten, Steve.
George the Cat.
George the Cat. So any more cat puns are welcome. Maybe some horse names if you want to. I'll kick us off with Purdet Road, and anyone else if you'd like to chime in, by all means do on the comments. Dan is looking appalled.
It's a new low for the show.
That's what you've done. You held up the cat, Steve. Don't hold up the cat if you can't deal with the puns. DC, you also like Comfort Zone and another one at 26.0.
Yeah. Dan made a great catch. Just Comfort Zone. I won't bother adding to it. He was spot on with everything he said. I just think that when he's off, and I'd say he'll be very close in this. The other one I like, he's up the top of the handicap, is Maxim. Gordon Elliott's horse. He is a rock solid handicapper, and over further as well. He's got some great handicap wins over 3 miles. Like he this time last year, he won at the Dublin Racing Festival. The 3 mile handicap there, beating Guayaquil, who went off to be the favourite for the Pertemps. He was actually entered in the Coral Cup last year, and he was pulled out because of the heavy ground. Now, as I said, look, the Coral Cup is one of the trickiest races of the week, and I think you really need an experienced horse, a horse that is comfortable in big field handicaps. He has all that. He'll be close to top weight, but doesn't really bother me too much. He's 26.0, and he will stay the trip. He'll stay further as well. I think you need that as well. Comfort Zone has gone up on trip, but I think he'll be all right. But Maxim, again, look, he's going to come down the trip. Hopefully, the strong pace, he'll get up the hill. His stamina will come into play, and I can definitely see him running into a place, especially if the ground is good, soft, or good.
Okay, kicking on to the next race on the Wednesday, we're going to be previewing, which is the cross country. Steve and DC agree. Steve, you can lead us off.
Yeah, it's Galvin who finally gets his ground. This is the course in the middle of the track that they can't really water, and Galvin absolutely loves decent ground, and he always has done. He was 4th in the Grand National when we last saw him, and that's the kind of level he can operate at. He goes very well off the back of a break. He won at Punchestown in a Grade 3 after, well, his last victory was in a Grade 3 at Punchestown, October 2022, when he was returning from a break. He's got loads of form around this course, including 2 years ago when he was runner-up to Delta Work, when the soft ground just told in the closing stages. He went through that race like the winner for most of it. And he's still a force to be reckoned with on that Grand National 4th. So finally gets his ground. So I think Galvin's going to take some stopping.
Dees, what would you like to add?
Nothing much. Just that he was entered in, I don't know, was it the October or the November meeting? He was entered in one of the handicaps there, and I think they just wanted to see what mark he was going to get for it. He was put away. Everything seems to be dropping into place for this one. I could see him going off favourite. I think he's had to come in for a fair bit of support now. Last week, I could see him starting shorter than Stumptown.
All right, and Dan, who do you like?
Bustleton, who's been a bit of a long-term fancy, and the money keeps coming for him. I think last week he was 15.0. He's now into 9.0. The week before that, he was basically 26.0. So it's been sustained support for Bustleton. I will have a saver on Galvin because I agree that conditions are coming right for him. He would definitely be the danger in my eyes. But Bustleton looks like this has been a long-term plan, like it has for many, I suppose. But he had 2 lovely spins around the course and distance in November and December, ran perfectly well on both occasions. And then he's almost taken the old school Gordon Elliott route to the race by going to the Boyne Hurdle thereafter. Archetypal preparation, went through that race with plenty of enthusiasm. And it's good to see the old sparker seemingly come back after tailing off towards the back end of last season. Obviously, he was competing in some deep races off a mark that was on the half side for him, but it's dropped in the weights. It's actually rated £1 lower over in the UK than he is in Ireland, which is a rarity. And he's going to be getting a lot of weight off the principals in this race, which I think over the cross-country track can often reap rewards. We've seen it with a lot of low weights have already been winning this season. So I think that's going to be in his favour, and the drying ground as well. And interestingly, his last 2 wins have come when headgear's been reapplied, and all season he's been running without headgear. So it would be no surprise at all if the blinkers that he's often worn go back on for March, and that could spark a bit more improvement as well.
Okay, Dan Overall, sponsored by Joseph O'Brien. Moving on to the Grand Annual. Loads of different horses going up. Right, Deesh, you can come in. Last year's winner first of all, and another one at a price.
Yeah, so I know this is going to be bucking loads of trends because horses don't tend to come back to win the Grand Annual, but I think Unexpected Party has a great chance of it. Even if you look at the form of his win last year, he beat Liberty Hunter by 2.5 lengths, getting a pound off him. Now Liberty Hunter is rated 151. He was running off 139 last year. Unexpected Party has gone up a bit, but he's had a nice gentle autumn running in races that he couldn't win, but wouldn't have, I suppose, given maximum effort. He had a nice little tune up there behind Micheál again the last day. They've got him down a few pounds. He's going to be running in this now off 144. I think he has a great chance of following up. And the other one then, probably something a bit left field, one I tipped on the pod early on in the season is a horse. Where is he gone here now? Is he in here? Western Zephyr for Charlie Longsdon. He finished second to Loda Sud at the November meeting. He was a big enough price, but what I liked about him is that he's kind of a strange case in that this is his second season as a novice. He ran as a novice all last year, the 23-24 season, but didn't really ever seem to get home. And he had a wind operation over the summer, came back at the start of the season at Carlisle, and it was the same race that he'd ran in for a season up the previous year, and he absolutely flew up the hill in Carlisle. You know, there's a steep enough finish to Carlisle. Jumped way better, just looked a completely different horse. Ran very well behind Loda Sud. I mean, he'd no chance there. He was beating 11 lengths, but look at how good he is. Has ran at Christmas on good soft ground, didn't quite get home, but I'd say he's probably a good ground horse. A lot of Charlie Longsdon's are. He's a decent jumper. Again, he's going to be running at the bottom of the handicap. He's 34.0. He's just the one to keep an eye on.
Okay. Unexpected Party and Western Zephyr. I'll come in next with So Scottish, who I just like the profile of a horse for this race. They're like Unexpected Party had last year, and to an extent this year, who's done absolutely nothing all year. 139 for So Scottish, for obviously a pretty shrewd operation, could be an absolute gift. Now that comes with caveats because he's obviously not been easy to win with, and he's largely been running over hurdles. He's finished second a few times. I mean, some of the form is good behind the Wall Park and the like. But, you know, you go back to his run here in the plate a few years ago, in 23 off 143. Like, I think he looked that day like it was stretching his stamina, and he lines up here off £4 lower. I mean, he's still only 8. I thought he was very interesting. I hope he's intended to line up at 15.0. So Scottish. I'll be very keen to see what price he goes off on the day. Steve Jones.
Yeah, I sort of agree with Dease that last year's Grand Annual I thought was a strong race. Unexpected Party beat Liberty Hunter. I wouldn't be surprised if Liberty Hunter ran in the Champion Chase and ran really well. And third in that was Path de Row of Gavin Cromwell's, who ran really well and has since come out and won on decent ground at Cheltenham. That was earlier in the season in a novices chase because he didn't win, even though he had good place form last season. He didn't win last season. And last time out at Fairy House, he ran really well again when runner-up to the King of PRS or PRs, whichever you want to say. So Path de Row, I think, loves, certainly goes well at Cheltenham, loves a decent pace to aim at, and did really well to win at Cheltenham first time because he made a mistake at a crucial time and he got back up to beating Jazzy Matty. I think that this horse is going to run another huge race in the Grand Annual and hopefully go a couple of better than he did last year.
John exchanges Jazzy Matty and King of PRS for me in the Grand Annual. And the Jincy said, So Scottish is a dog. And I can't disagree with that. That's fine. Who haven't we had? Just Dan.
Yeah, and I have to say, I'm currently, they're not certain to run in the race, but whoever does, I'm keen to follow the class angle here to completely understand the point about Liberty Hunter. He may well go to the Champion Chase. Unexpected Party is better off with him despite beating him last year. But Liberty Hunter went into this race last year having just 3 runs, and I think, generally speaking, novices first time in a Grand Annual do struggle, and he ran exceptionally well under the circumstances. And in 4 subsequent runs, he's improved each and every time. So I think if he was to run here off 151, I think he'd have an outstanding chance. I think he'd be shorter than his current price, but say he does have that option of the Champion Chase. But I think this race looks very winnable. And Touch Me Not, the same principle applies, where I don't think he's likely to run. Seems like they're probably going to go on the Arkle route. I think with Firefox going to the novice handicap, apparently. So Gordon will have Touch Me Not in the Arkle. But again, classy novice who has at least gathered some experience, front runs, jumps really well from the front, could just have that bit of class edge on the rest, who I generally see is pretty exposed, not inspiring handicappers. So if one of them runs, I'll be backing them. If both run, I'll back both. But Liberty Hunter would probably be the stronger one of my fancies.
Dale says King of Purrs. Very good, Dale. Moving on to the Jack Richards Novices Handicap Chase. A couple going up here. Deasy, first of all, with the likely favourite.
Yeah, this is a really uninspiring pick, but I went through this a good bit, and I just kept coming back to him. Jaguar, I think he has so much going from this, and he's a sharp price, and I don't want to put up favourites in these kind of handicaps, but like, he won the best trial. If you look at that race he won at there, like, even back when this was a handicap a few years ago, I would like Kill the Start won it, came second. Simply the Bets won it, absolutely pissed up. Imperial Alcazar won it, pissed up. Stage Star won it. He won the was it the 2 mile 5 the novice chase. Like, it's the best trial for this race when it was a novice handicap. He has gone off. I'd say he's been backed nearly every time he's run for them. They've always known this horse is a good horse. He seems to have been laid out for it. And look, you just have to respect connections. And the trainers are really, really good as well. He's no price, but I think he's a huge chance.
Ryan, our producer, says Nap here, Westport Cove, 17.0. I backed that in the county last year and it pulled up, but it did clip heels. But good luck, Ryan. The other one with a bet here is Steve.
Yeah, it's another Joseph O'Brien horse called Jordan's, who had a lot of experience in France and good form in France around Auteuil as well, which you really have to jump. And he's since come over, had 4 goes for Joseph O'Brien. He won at Punchestown in a Grade 3 novice chase. And since then, he's gone on to finish second in Grade 1 at Limerick over Christmas when he was second to Imperial Pass. So I think he could easily be... I mean, you wouldn't... An inexperienced novice might struggle, but he's got loads of experience in France. So Jordan's can cope with this, and he just might have too much class for them, I think.
Okay, Simon says no bed ring will wrap them all. Alex says Firefox for me. Jordan's a nice horse, Steve. Moving on to the Pertemps. I'll kick off with Jericho de Repene. The case is pretty obvious. The horse has got his quirks. I think the yard could have a really good festival in the handicaps as well. This horse obviously was nowhere last year, but there were obvious excuses for that, and that was early on in the week as well. He might not have run if it had been later on in the week, but I think he's really well treated. I think he'll stay, but you can't be absolutely certain. But at 8.0, I definitely want him on side. I think he could have a lot in hand off his current mark. Dan.
Yeah, Jericho has been the sort of the plunge horse. I just think he's a bit tricky. I mean, he started the season as an Arkle contender, and now he's running in a 3 mile handicap hurdle, and everyone thinks he's a plot, which to me wouldn't scream plot, but there you go.
I like just the race does have a history of failed chasers coming back to hurdles as well, so that's sort of further strengthens the case for me. But I totally get what you mean. Go on, kick on. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean. The Coral Cup used to be like that as well. To be fair, horses failing over fences and coming back. But Feed of a Dancer for me, just a very consistent mare. Definitely not a plot by any stretch, but just very likable sort. Unexposed over this trip still, and she was 3rd in the Leopardstown qualifier over Christmas, which has generally been the primary Irish qualifying race for this. Obviously, that was won by Win Some, Lose Some. She got to the front jumping the last, where then just run down by Win Some, Lose Some. I think is a stronger stayer, and that would be the slight concern, is her stamina. But I think they'll have learnt a lot from that, and I think she'll be ridden with restraint, with an idea of coming there late. I think she has a lot of similarities to Mrs. Milner, who the Yard won this race with not too long ago. I just think she's a very likeable mare who's a win and place proposition. It's hard to see her far away. There could be one or two in here with just a bit more up their sleeve, like a Win Some Lose Some, like a Jericho de Repenay if he puts it all together. But as a solid proposition, I think Feed of a Dancer is very reasonable around 13.0.
Steve Jones.
D'Art, who's trained by Tommy Cooper in Ireland, and he doesn't come over all that often. He trained, it doesn't seem like any time ago, but he trained for Paddy de Plaster to win the Arkle one year, and he won the bumper as well one year. And his horses, when they come over, they tend to run well. And I thought it was interesting that D'Art qualified by coming over to Carlisle just before Christmas and hasn't been seen since. Previous to that, it won at Punchestown on good ground, or good to yielding ground, and that's the first time he's run on ground anywhere near that. Most of his runs have come on very soft or heavy ground, and the fact that he's winning on over 2.5 on a good ground, I think is a pointer to a horse that has only had one go over 3 miles. That was, or 3 miles one at Carlisle, when he was beaten a neck. And I think he could easily be well handicapped and have every chance.
And oh no, Deasy, you got nothing, have you? Nothing in this.
Okay. I do.
Oh, you do. Sorry, I'm reading across the bottom. Go on. Oh yes, you put one in. Who do you like?
I wouldn't say this is a strong bet, no, because I would probably be more concrete on the day for this because there's so many in there. Like as you said, they're at the top of the market. If I was Gordon Elliott, I'd run the wall park on this, because even if he was carrying 14 stone, I'd say he'd piss up. Different level to all these, but look, that might be up to JP, but he can go for the stairs next year. Just win this. No bother to him. The one I looking at is Super Survivor for Jamie Snowden. As I said to you before this, there's something that caught me eye with this horse. Like he was a decent enough novice hurdler. I think at one stage there was talk of him going for the Welsh National when he started his novice chase campaign, or his chasing campaign. But it kind of he switched to hurdles at the back end of last season, and he's been only hurdling this season. He ran in a qualifier in December at Sandown, finished third, which would have qualified him. Followed up then with a win at Doncaster over Christmas, again over 3 miles, and they stuck him into another pretense qualifier in the end of January in Huntington, which he won, which guarantees him a run. That day he beat Shannon Bob, Zane Knights, a few other ones, Noir, Joe, and Itchy Feet, and that's all. Look, they obviously really wanted him to get in. He probably wouldn't have got in off the mark. He ran off 1:25 in the race that he run. He's in here now at 1:31. He's guaranteed a run. He's going to be down the bottom of the weights. He has some fairly consistent hurdling form, and I just think he was just an interesting, sneaky one where everyone is going to be looking at the top of the market for this. There's just I thought there was a bit of an angle there, and he's 34.0.
Okay, that's the Pertemps down. We move on to the plate. Dan, you've already made this case on the preview, but you can crack on again. You like it even more?
Oh, the enthusiasm remains. I think nothing has really changed. Obviously, Gemaron, for me, the plate has been a race historically where course form repeats itself and it turns into a bit of a specialist test because there are so many versions of this race. I think Matt Toons made that point really well on the road to Cheltenham a couple of weeks ago as well. Well, he won the December Gold Cup off Mark 136, and he's had plenty of excuses since. He reappeared pretty quickly on New Year's Day, where the Yard were just going through that really barren spell. Change of tactics on Trials Day, where normally front rank, this time held up, and actually was coming into the race reasonably well. Then error 3 out, ended all chance, and not messed around with afterwards. Down to a Mark 142 now, having gone up £8 initially for that win. I say, if he reverts to front running tactics, that's where you want to be in a plate. We know he's got the course form. He ran well at the festival last year in the Grand Annual in a race which probably didn't suit him. He's definitely more of a 2.5 mile horse. And as we know, Tom, Venetia has a brilliant record in the plate, so what's not to like?
Anita in the play. Yeah. I absolutely follow you in there. I think that's a great shout. A Panic Attack's the other one I like. Dan Skelton's mare. I did a preview with Dan actually where he put her up. She was on my radar already. I think the issue could be drying ground. We don't know what's going to happen. I think you'd want it to be soft ground. But they obviously gave her a bit of a spin last time with this in mind at Warwick over hurdles when she ran really well. And I think they feel that a mark of 135 underestimates her. So a Panic Attack at 21.0. But I would want there to be a little bit of cut in the ground. I want it to be soft ground, really. Maybe it will be on the Thursday. Steve?
What's Up, Darling? For me, who ran respectably in the Martin Pipe Hurdle last season when finishing 6th, and has since taken quite nicely to fences, including when second to Jeannot Lapin at Leopardstown over Christmas. Well, Jeannot Lapin has since been competitive in graded races. So off the back of that, I think was quite interesting. They kept to 2 miles in finished 3rd at Turles, and then Gowran last time ridden more prominently and ran another sound race, although backed out of it in the closing stages. And I think that this horse might just be about to peak on a decent handicap rating.
All right, and DC, you've got a couple.
I do. First one is very obvious, but it's Cribilli. I didn't really want to back this horse or put this horse up, but I was talking to Matt Toombs about him there a few weeks ago, and I was like, sure, he had a stone in hand last year and he got beaten and all the rest of it. And the more I came back to it, like, it's just he apparently had a stone in hand last season. He was just beaten by Cheltenham Handicaps, who was on a brilliant run and just a great course distance form, just 3 or 4 races like this over the course of the season. Cheltenham Handicaps just arrived there at the top of his game, pipped him, and they have unbelievably managed to get Cribilli in here now on a £2 lower mark, which is up there with the kind of Langer than messing around that was going on there the last few years. I just think, look, JP has done this before where he's sent horses back to win the second time. He's a decent price. He's 9.0. This is mad competitive race, but like I just think, look, he's primed for another big run at this. The other one then is Moon d'Orange, who I think Sean Bowen has had a few contenders for ride of the season this year, but I think the one where he won on this horse the last day was just incredible. It was on Trials Day. You want to watch this again? Just the horse was up the back of the screen for most of it, but he just came from absolutely miles back. Now he was smashed into favoritism on the day. I think he was a double figure price the night before, and they just kept backing him and backing him. He must have hit 100 in running. Just came flying home, even went through a fence towards the end of it, and still managed to get up, beating Grandeur Dam, who again would be another one to have on side in this. Look, he's in here. He has multiple entries. I think this is where he should run. If I was running him, haven't seen him since. He's in here off 135. I think that's completely fine, and he's 17.0. So I'd have the two of them on side and probably a few more as well.
Cribilli and Moon d'Orange. Straight back at you. You've got 2 in the Kim Muir as well. I'll tell you what, you've got to have a good week.
I'm just an incredibly indecisive person. I don't really have 2 in the Kim Muir because I was looking at Sam Majest. I thought he would be the one, and then the news came out that Derek O'Connor was riding Johnny Who, so obviously he is the one. So again, look, I'm not going to go on about this too much. Johnny Who had multiple entries. If he's the one that they're picking to ride this off 140, I mean, they got it so right last year. The connections know what they're doing. I think Sam Majest, though, I'd probably, if he goes in the 4 miler as well, I'd back him. I think he's a high class horse. He was he went off favourite there for a second. I'll just get his form up here. Like he was very well backed in the Coral Cup last year. Has some decent chasing form this year. Hasn't knocked it out of the park, but I suppose has been kind of running. Like, he was well beaten by Imperial Pass over Christmas. Behind Search for Glory, another horse I've good time for. They thought that he was going to be a Gold Cup horse, graded horse. He's here now running handicaps off 140. I would keep him inside wherever he runs, but I think, look, Derek O'Connor is the best amateur jockey going, and if he's on Johnny Who, it's worth a lot. So maybe on the day, depending on the price, but I'd have the two of them on side, yeah.
Okay. Dan, you like Irish Raider?
Yeah, man, who was one of the leading anti-post favourites for this race last year after he won the Grand National trial at Haydock. They ended up going down the Irish National route, understandably so, after he won in heavy ground there. I think that probably just stretched him a bit, the Irish National, but plenty of really solid big handicap chase form to his name. He's run well in the Troy Town and the Fiestas this season, and was going along really nicely again in the national trial when we last saw him, where it had a really soft unseat. He jumped the fence fine, just the lightest of stumbles, and Sean Flanagan found himself on the deck. So it was a bit unfortunate. I think he would have won or gone very close there. He just shapes like he's got another big handicap in him. And while this race has generally gone to a novice in recent years, obviously Johnny, who looks like being the one who may well feature at the top of the betting for this, obviously changes to qualification rules mean there aren't going to be as many. And there has traditionally in the past gone to more experienced handicappers. I think man's got another big race in him. He's ground versatile. The Yard won it last year, albeit a very different type. And I think there's a lot to like about him.
And Steve.
Another Gavin Cromwell horse. Now is the hour.
Someone's put Micheál. Micheál is the hour at the bottom, which is genius. Well done. Carry on.
He's gone, George. I don't know where he's gone, but he's had enough. Now is the hour makes his handicap debut of any kind. And considering he absolutely bolted up at Haydock in a Grade 2 novice hurdle last season, beating Don't Rightly Know, who's gone on to prove herself very useful over fences, and the fact that Now is the Hour finished fourth in a good beginner's chase last time behind 3-card Bragg. I think Now is the Hour is really well handicapped. I'm a little bit concerned that the ground might not be soft enough, but I'm going to take the chance because I'm convinced that Now is the Hour is really, really well handicapped.
Moving on to the county, then. This is the last preview we're going to do handicaps wise because we've got nothing for the Martin Pipe, unsurprisingly, I guess, given the nature of that race. County hurdle, then. I'm sticking out Valgrand for obviously a yard that have got a tremendous record in this race. It's been the Mullins-Skelton show for a long time now. Valgrand is a horse who won here earlier on this season, then found Potter's Charm too good. And they immediately said, 2.5 was too far. They immediately said after that the county was going to be the plan. And I'm not surprised at what we've seen subsequently. The trouble is, the cat's a bit out of the bag and he's 13.0, whereas I guess he shouldn't be on recent efforts. So I was, I've had the horse on the agenda on the radar for a while. 13.0 is not as big as I think it should be, but I definitely want to have the horse on side. Been talking about him for a while for this race. Steve, back at you.
Yeah, not very original in last year's winner, Absurd, who hasn't run over hurdles since, but has taken his form to a different level, really, because he was fifth in the Melbourne Cup. And previous to that, had won around Chester in a listed race, both obviously on the flats. And I just think that sort of form, given that you'd be against that sort of profile if the horse hadn't shown that he can win a race like this. But last season, he obviously did. And the ground was very soft last year. And he's won an Ebor and run really well in a Melbourne Cup on decent ground. So it's not very original, but Absurd, I think, will win it again.
DC?
Yeah, look, I have a stronger opinion on the day, and I think Absurd is probably a very, very likely winner. He was Paul Tonin's only handicap ride of the festival last year, so just keep an eye on that. If he's running in the handicaps, if he gets chopped up on one, that's something to take an eye on. The one I like is Lark in the Morning, another Joseph horse. Look, he they weren't even going to run him last year because of the ground. He'd been pulled out on heavy ground numerous times before that. They said they'd give it a go, and look, he scooted in. Last year's juveniles are a decent bunch. Look, he just was no good at Haydock and the Swinton Hurdle. Had a little run there at Christmas, but I mean, he's been given plenty of time now for this. He won off 1-2-2 last year. I mean, if the ground is against him, realistically, he'd be a lot better on go ground. He's a flatbread horse. And look, he's been well found in the market. I would be advising him to be steaming in right now because it's a very competitive race, but I think he has to be on your shortlist.
And we go to best handicap bets then for Cheltenham 2025. Mine is Broadway Boy in the Ultima. I did have one in the plate, but DC stuck one in the plate, so I'm going to change. That was going to be Panic Attack. But I like Broadway Boy in the Ultima, so we got one in different races. Steve, your best bet?
Galvin in the cross-country chase with conditions very much in his favour.
Okay. Dan?
And the current prices, I'll go Comfort Zone in the Coral Cup. I think he could shorten a fair bit as some of the top of the market will go out.
And DC?
Yeah, mine is Cribilli in the plate.
There you go. We got there in just under an hour. Hope you've all enjoyed that. Head to insights.matchbook.com for a recap of all of those bets. There'll be links to listen and watch as well. And don't forget to check out our podcast we did last week. That was previewing the grade ones of the festival, plus any other bets as well. Next week, we'll be with you Monday to preview the week. So Monday, there'll be a podcast early Monday afternoon to preview the entirety of the week. And there'll be some Twitter spaces each and every morning for you that you can join in with us on. I'll be live at the track and we'll get a good team on for you just to give you updated bets each and every day of the Cheltenham Festival 2025. Nearly here. Bye all.